What's up, you guys? Welcome back out in the shop here and getting some work done on the Decepticon. Look at that sexy beast. I've got new ESCs on the way for that thing, shipping out, I believe, Tuesday. Expect to see that boat back bigger, better than ever. Very cool. And I've got the Lizard, MHZ Lizard, and I've got the Dominator, also known as the DY Motor Shop Mono, depending on what retailer you get it from. So while I still have my Dominator, I thought this might be a cool comparison because I am loving this Lizard. It is highly efficient, right? And my biggest issue with the Dominator was getting it to be efficient, right? To free it up. And so because I think this is kind of a cool comparison because the Lizard is an older hull that not a ton of people are still running and still posting about. The Dominator, obviously, is a more modern race boat, right? Like the M34 Raider, as an example, right? So it's a newer, more current hull. And so I know a few of you guys have Dominators. I don't know a lot of you that have the Lizards. Some of you guys still have them from back in the day or whenever, and that's super cool, but I'm probably betting not many of you guys have both. And so if I post one and you have the other, right, I want you guys to be able to kind of see some kind of comparison, right? So you can see the two boats and compare it to whatever you're currently running. So out back here, you can see hardware is almost the same. So this is an old school TFL strut. This is like the older style. And this is the nicer TFL tabs. These tabs are really sweet. They were an upgrade on the boat. Only problem is you can't adjust, if you guys can see, you can't adjust the inner turnbuckle on these because the rudder is so close. So that's why on this one, I went with this style. You know, these can bend in a bad crash, but at least I can adjust them and get to things as needed. And then, of course, a newer TFL strut. Same turn fins, same OSC dual pickup rudders. These work great. Biggest difference as far as the exterior of the boats, both of these boats, believe it or not, are entirely carbon fiber. The only difference is that the Lizard has a gel coat or it's painted. Either way, it's got a white, but they're both incredibly light carbon fiber layups. So these were the electronics in the Dominator. They have since been changed, right? So I got a big TP4060 in here. Both of these boats did exactly 64 miles an hour in oval trim. And one is on 6S, and they actually both pulled the same amps, right? But this one's on 6S, this one's on 4, right? Which means this one is taking significantly more wattage to do the same speeds. Right, and there's reasons for that we'll get into, but the long and short of it is that, you know, volts times amps equals watts. So when you bring your voltage up, like on a 6S boat versus a 4S, your amperage will come down. So both of these were running the X8S. This one had a converted stump fab. This one has the actual Hydra. This is a Castle 1515, which is about a 4074 measurement. This is a 4060 TP motor, 1750 kV, which is roughly I believe it's like an 82 or 84 millimeter length. So, you know what? No, I think it's a 92 millimeter length. I'm sure you guys can correct me in the comments. Exterior wise, the biggest difference is that this boat's going to have a very narrow hatch opening, which makes it a little bit difficult to get stuff in the sides. You pretty much are forced to run everything down the center, especially because the sides are gusseted. I did not build this boat. This boat came mostly as you see it. The previous owner did this carbon fiber inlay a bit sloppily, but the boat is pretty much how it came. This boat I entirely built. So this boat, I did the full inlay, I did the tray, I did the electronic placement, I did all the hardware. Obviously, this was a full build from scratch. So exterior wise, the biggest aesthetic difference you're gonna see is how much freeboard the boats have, right? So you can see the belt line On the Dominator, super low profile, pretty much at the fin. Whereas you see the Lizard, you've got the fin, and then you've got about 10 feet of freeboard, right? So this is more of like an old school design, more of like an offshore look, right? A little higher profile, which I tend to like. You know, I also tend to like my boats painted. To me, they look a little bit more scale, a little bit more realistic. Carbon fiber missile is cool, but I do like the paint. I feel like it gives the boat a little bit of personality. It doesn't look so like sterile, like just a weapon. But I think you can get these from DY Motor Shop actually in a white gel coat, which is super cool. So dimension wise, this boat measures 33 inches in length, and this boat measures 32 inches in length. So very close, but Dominator is a slightly bigger boat. In terms of width as well, I believe the Dominator is a full inch, half inch to an inch wider than the Lizard, right? So the Lizard is slightly smaller of a boat. I think it's probably slightly lighter as well. You know, one thing about the Dominator is because of the design, you're a bit limited on CG, right? Because if you've got your ESC here, you've got your battery, right? It tends to push the CG forward, which I think is partly why this boat tends to run a little bit wet and to pull a lot of amps. And the other thing is, like I said, I didn't build this boat. So when they did the stuffing tube on it, you can see the stuffing tube is relatively deep on the hull, right? Relatively deep. Whereas when you look at mine, you can see a pretty noticeable, get you guys in there, pretty noticeable difference, right? With it being higher up. And I tend to prefer my struts a little bit higher up. You can get away with a little bit more prop sizes, right? Because the prop can unload a little bit more versus having it really deep. Big difference here. You can get this boat as a ready to run, right? You can go to Offshore Electrics. You can get a Pursuit ready to run, which is also an amazing boat. A Pursuit is actually more similar to this in length and width, right? But that's a killer boat, race winning boat. You can get a Raider and build something. That's a pretty inexpensive way to do it. I think you can get a Raider M34 hull for like $220 or whatever. Build something, save a ton of money. And, you know, honestly, you guys, if nothing else, I really hope that, you know, my channel can help inspire someone, because I can remember before I built my first boat, it was a bit of like a hurdle where I didn't, you know, I knew about building boats. I knew it was possible, but I didn't really want to take it on. And I'd love to do an actual build with you guys. This is actually the most recent boat that I've built. And so this boat came fully carbon fiber, but it has an inlay. And it has an inlay because when I blueprinted the bottom, well, I'll show you guys really quick here. Let me get everything situated. Dominator is actually, believe it or not, a fairly heavy boat. And I think that's probably because I've got the big TP motor in it. You know, if I was going to keep the Dominator, I'd probably try and find a way to free it up a little bit. Let me get you guys here. I really want to show you guys the bottom differences. So let's see. All right. So as you can see here, newer design. This bottom has been fully blueprinted. It has a ride pad, and I have not changed the design of the bottom. I've only blueprinted it and trued it up to make it true to spec. Here you can see, again, deep strut, not so deep strut on that boat. This boat has a flat ride pad here, flat ride pad. This boat has kind of a rounded off traditional V, not necessarily like a sharp V, but it is more of a actual V. The difference here is this boat will tend to turn a little bit better. And this boat, in theory, in a straightaway, will ride on this pad and get a little more lift. It'll kind of settle and do a little better in a straight line. So probably why Big B has done like 90 miles an hour or something with this hull. It certainly handles speed very well if you can throw enough power at it. So again, newer designed hull. You can see there's a lot of surface until you get to the lifting strakes. Now these lifting strakes here, lifting strakes help lift the boat out of the water. And this being an old school hull, it had really long lifting strakes. They went to here and here and here. And so you could see there was a very little surface without lifting strake. And the reason for that was because this is back when they didn't have the power we do today. And so the boat was designed to have lift to compensate for that, to make less power do more, right? Whereas this boat is designed for today's bigger power systems. So what I basically did on the Lizard was I copied my buddy's pursuit measurements, and I took my sanding disc on my Dremel and I took them off. I took the strakes off. I measured it and I zipped them off. And then from there, I had 4 holes in my boat. And I'll actually put some pictures up of this. I had 4 holes in the bottom of my boat. And that's when I did a full inlay and then a blueprint. And so that's a ton of work. I don't expect you guys to do all that. I'm just showing you how I basically turned my Lizard bottom into a pursuit bottom, right? A pursuit would be more similar to this one. It would be these dimensions, but with more of this style bottom, but without this ride pad. So after running the two quite extensively, I would honestly say that I probably would go with a more traditional bottom, like a normal V, something like a Raider M34. A Pursuit ready to run is a killer value at Offshore Electrics. I think, size-wise, they are close enough. I don't think an inch is going to make or break either one. I did have some struggles getting this one to free up a little bit, but I can't really hold that against the boat because I know the ones I've seen on YouTube, Big B has his obviously running loose, right? He got it free and super fast. On almost this, I think even the same power system, right? Which tells me I'm probably doing something wrong, but I tried every prop. I tried a positive strut, tried a negative strut. This boat, I set up more traditionally to my other ones, and it just works. It works really well. I need to paint the bottom. You'll see on this one, I painted it all black, and that worked out. I do have the this is the 4082 that the boat came with. And this one shorted out. It was in I think it got into some brackish water or something and shorted. So this is kind of just a paperweight. I use it to mock up. I use this end plate to mock up motor mounts and stuff if I need to. It's a strong motor. I think it's a hobby wing, so it's a 6-pole. It's a fine motor. It's, nothing wrong with that motor. Just mine in particular. And so, I think that's probably a quick rundown on the boats. This Dominator's going to a buddy. He has me, just hanging on to it in the meantime. And I figured this is probably the only time I'll be able to do this comparison for you guys. And since I've owned quite a few monos, just wanted to show you kind of some differences in the bottom design, in the hardware. On my strut on this one, you can actually see I've actually offset the strut maybe a 1/16 of an inch off to the, this is the left side, but if it was flipped over, it would be the right side. And obviously that helps. And that's a kind of a secret, I guess, that I'm giving out. It's an old school secret. It's nothing new, but basically a single motor boat, right? Because the prop is spinning one direction is going to have a tendency to want to turn to the right, I believe, right? So usually you add a little bit of left rudder, but another way you could do that is if you slightly offset the strut to the right, a hair, that's going to naturally push the boat a little bit to the left, right? So now I can run my rudder more or less straight and the boat will kind of, anyway, that was actually first time I've done that on a single motor. It ended up working out. Everything ended up working out well on this boat. So yeah, that's kind of some of your options. If you like a mono hull, monos are amazing because they are very friendly. If you're a beginner or a pro, it doesn't matter. They don't tend to flip as much, right? They tend to have the most slip of all boat designs. So like a catamaran, for example, is going to be much more efficient and faster on the same power, but a mono is going to be a bit more stable, a bit more forgiving. Monos are always fun. It's, you know, the P mono class, racing class, is the most popular racing class, and for good reason. You know, they're the easiest to get into. They flip the least. They're forgiving. They're fun. And I got to be honest with you guys, one thing about this Lizard that is maybe an X factor, maybe it's just a personal preference thing. I just think this is like the sexiest looking boat ever. I mean, and again, it needs a windshield. Maybe that's just me, but I'm a sucker for a painted boat. And my thing with this boat was I wanted something with an old school offshore look. And it's not even that old school, but it is like an offshore look, like it sits higher in the water. But I wanted performance of like a modern race boat. And so I think we've pretty much got there. You know, I think that was pretty much accomplished. Some paint. I want to paint the bottom, and definitely going to be seeing a lot more of this one. And yeah, that's really it. I think I've probably kept you guys long enough. This is kind of my morning coffee chat. So if I'm supercharged, that's why. I appreciate the support, you guys, the comments, the new subscribers. You guys rock. Please leave a comment, anything you want to see, any boat that you want to see more of. If you want to see a build, we should do a channel build. We should do one together, and let me know what we could build, because I'm kind of itching to start a new one. So if you've hung around through the rambling, I appreciate you guys. Next video should be out running, so I know you guys like those. And that's it. I'll catch you guys on the next one.